Greetings, friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov. Yuri Ushakov, the foreign policy aide to the President of the Russian Federation, reminded us that he was a participant in the recent talks between Vladimir Putin, the special representative of the U.S. President-elect Steve Witkoff, and Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Ushakov emphasized that Kushner could be the author of the final version of the peace plan intended to lead to the end of the Russo-Ukrainian war. He also noted that Kushner proved to be very useful during the negotiations with Witkoff because he brought a sense of structure and system to the table. Thus, the Americans have received a fairly obvious signal from the Kremlin. Specifically, Jared Kushner is now considered by the Kremlin to be the main negotiator capable of agreeing with Putin on ending the Russo-Ukrainian war. At first glance, this seems like a strange decision. After all, Putin managed to establish a rapport with Witkoff, something that could even be seen during the protocol footage of the Russian president with the former realtor and old friend of Trump. Putin obviously likes him, and Witkoff does not hide his sympathy for the Russian dictator. Witkoff is not even shy about advising Ushakov on how to deal with President Trump to achieve the most beneficial results for Russia ahead of the Ukrainian president's visit. But as we can see, it was not Witkoff, but Kushner who truly caught the Kremlin's interest. And this is a typical tactic of the Russian special services, who have been ruling Russia for several decades. In Moscow, they perfectly understand that a president's son-in-law is not just a best friend. He is a person who enjoys Donald Trump's unconditional trust. After all, Kushner was one of the main participants in the peace negotiations in the Middle East. Moreover, his financial interest became apparent when the final agreements regarding the conflict between Israel and Hamas were being discussed. As is known, active participants in these talks included countries like Qatar, and investments from these countries into funds associated with Kushner could be significant proof of how Israel should behave when it comes to peace deals. And now, the Kremlin can solve two tasks at once. First, to interest Kushner with their own financial proposals. After all, why else was this institution created, which Kirill Dmitriev headed precisely when Moscow decided to drag out time in negotiations with the Americans? And second, to demonstrate their special interest specifically in contacts with the Trump family. Since the incumbent U.S. president obviously views his presidency as a family business, such an approach can only appeal to him. But here, another no less important question arises. To what extent can Jared Kushner actually achieve real concessions from Putin and other Russian leaders regarding the end of the Russo-Ukrainian war? We must say immediately, without any illusions, the coefficient of useful action, efficiency, of Kushner here is equal to the efficiency of Witkoff. Every American official, or even a member of Donald Trump's family, is used by the Russian leadership solely to drag out time and prolong the Russo-Ukrainian war. There might be hopes, and Putin, along with Ushakov, could have drawn such a conclusion from the conversation with Kushner, that with Trump's son-in-law, this time-wasting could be done even more effectively than with Trump's friend, because Trump will trust his son-in-law more. And when Kushner convinces the U.S. president that Putin is looking for ways to end the war, while accompanying these searches with generous financial proposals to the Trump family, this could tune Trump into optimistic forecasts regarding the end of the conflict. You understand that all these optimistic forecasts are made by Trump for a reason. They are based on unrealistic expectations, and on the correct professional work of the Russian special services, which programmed the American president to believe in his own hopes. And the dialogue with his son-in-law should help Putin continue this line. The main mistake here lies in the fact that Trump constantly retreats from his own idea to achieve a ceasefire on the Russo-Ukrainian front. When he sees that Putin obviously does not intend to end the war, he briefly returns to this idea, but then abandons it again. And for Putin, the main thing is to use Kushner so that Trump permanently forgets about the ceasefire and becomes a participant in a multi-year peace process. That is, negotiations against the backdrop of war and the destruction of Ukraine. Putin's strategic idea is to continue this negotiation process until Trump's political career ends. That is, until January 2029. During this time, the Russian president hopes to destroy our state, even if not through military success on the front, then at least through missile bombardments and the actions of drones in the Ukrainian rear. He hopes to help ultra-right and ultra-left populist parties come to power in Europe, whose leaders, Putin hopes, will agree with him on a completely different image of Europe and a different attitude toward the war. And for the new American president, even if it is someone connected with common sense much more than the self-confident leader of the United States, it will be very difficult to correct Trump's mistakes. Perhaps by that time, the United States will finally lose its renown as a world leader in favor of the People's Republic of China and the Russian Federation as its faithful satellite. This is Putin's global plan. This is not a story about ending the Russo-Ukrainian war. In the Kremlin, no one has ever thought about that, nor are they thinking about it now. This is a story about how to use the family ties of President Trump to win in that geopolitical struggle with the West, which Putin started several decades ago, and from which he hopes to emerge as the victor, primarily due to the incompetence and foolishness of those he is fighting against. And it must be said that the voters in the countries that should have realized such a danger are doing the Russian president a necessary service. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it, subscribe to my social networks, and to the channel on Patreon, which helps develop these resources. Use the sponsorship function on YouTube itself. Victory and peace to you. Good luck.